As the ongoing drama around the concessioning of Ajaokuta Steel Company continues, civil society organizations and other relevant stakeholders have expressed concerns over plans by the federal government to concession Ajaokuta Steel Company and Itakoe Iron Ore Company without recourse to the National Assembly. They are asking the governors and, of course, the National Assembly and the president-elect to wade into this. They want them to weigh into this issue to halt the last-minute rush, that's according to them, by the Federal Ministry of Mines and Steels Development to concession this plant. But I'll talk to somebody that I introduced earlier to give us more clarity on this. He is the director of Abuja School of Social and Political Thought, Dr. Sam Amadi, also a former chairman of NEC. Dr. Amadi, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I would like to ask first that, is it possible to concession a plant as big as Ajaokuta and not go through National Assembly and some of these processes?
Well, first, yes, you can do that without going to National Assembly because once the law allows you, there's a law for concession, Infrastructure Concession and the Regulation Commission Act. There's also a law, BPP, for BPP. And again, some of the laws, as long as there's no law that makes it difficult for you to concession, you may not go to National Assembly. But there are due processes for doing that. First, ICRC has to be involved depending on the nature of the asset to concession or privatize, whether it's if it's privatized, BPE, concession is ICRC. Again, there are procedures for how long you have to advertise, 6 weeks, the minimum, processes, evaluations, and essentially the National Assembly at any time can also step in and invite you for questioning to show yourself that you are first following the laws. Secondly, you are conducting the process in a transparent and value-adding manner that guarantees that there will be public value. So yes, you may not go there, but they can invite you to explain what you're doing.
Let me ask now, what are the implications of a bad concession, or if it's not properly done, like some would say, maybe just giving it to the private sector?
It's very terrible. First, I mean, we've had a history of failed concession or privatization. And the idea has been that oftentimes it's supply driven. I mean, investors cherry pick, look at assets that they consider juicy. And because the public enterprise in Nigeria has been failing, it becomes a pretext to free ride, to kind of predate on public assets. So they go there, they look, identify these assets, and they enter into sweetheart deals with ministers or DGs or whichever person in government, and they structure some lousy arrangement and say, well, this is PPP.
Well, again, network there. Hope to have Dr. Sam Amadi.
So all of that has been problematic.
Due to network, we lost audio there. Please, we need that response again. We didn't get that, Dr. Amadi.
Okay, are you hearing me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
So I said that we've had a history of rigged concession or privatization. Oftentimes, it's the private sector who identifies a juicy asset, and they find a way to connive with government officials and create a fait accompli. Say, look, the government can't run this asset. We can do better. And then they design a scheme that allows them to be the preferred bidder, and they win. And they take these assets at cheap prices and do asset stripping, make money and dump them. We've seen that with a lot of assets, whether in tourism, the banking sector, or whether in the duty sector. So what's always drives this is sometimes not public interest. There are little due process. The process is not extensive enough, consultations. Even like what's proposed now, the time for bid, 20 days, that doesn't make sense. You can't have real consultation, reviews, project development, and audit the process in 20 days, not just expression of interest. They're saying everything, put together a bid, and we award a contract before we exit. So oftentimes, PPP projects have basically been about public sector people, businesses trying to steal public assets and buy them at a cheap and without clear demonstration of capacity to manage them or even capacity to return value to the public. So most of these are driven by supply side, meaning business guys who need assets, come in and convince public officials to divest from those assets, not for public value and not because they have the capacity to change what is happening in those assets and make them more efficient.
So I must wonder, maybe that is why this group is worried, saying about 11 companies already were involved in applying for this. And at the end of the day, they are having this limited time. And some even say, why not wait for the incoming administration, maybe to continue the process? Why this kind of rush to make everything on before 29th of May? That's also another question some are asking. Well, Dr. Amadi,
yeah, I said there's no reason why this government has to complete this. They should stop where they are, hand over the process, the advisory papers, the documentations to the incoming government. This is a process that requires thoroughness. Even when a winner emerges, you have to go back and study the process of handing over so that the new owner can smoothly, take over and run for value. So I think at this point, public interest dictates that the government stop further action on the concession. Look, the government has less than 40 days to hand over. And what they should be doing now is basically preparing to complete already almost completed transactions, prepare documentation and dossier and briefings so that the new government takes over and begins to take decisions that are in the public interest. At this point, much of these transactions will be seen as asset stripping. They can be considered as last-minute effort by ministers or public officials to take value for themselves and ensure that they hand over assets to their cronies before they exit. No, there's no haste in this. Whatever has been done, we could stop there, and the new government will have the responsibility and obligation with clear eyes to look back and assess what is done and continue if necessary. So I totally agree. No point to rush, no need to complete these transactions. They're not critical to the well-being of the people, such that 2 months, 3 months delay will be adverse in any way. No.
I like that fact. Dr. Amadi, some stakeholders also need to be carried along, maybe public hearings and all of that. So what sort of people do you think need to come together to on the round table, maybe with government officials, to discuss this, to strengthen, make this seamless as it can be? Yes.
I mean, there are 3 clear, constituencies. First, the communities in Ajaokuta. I mean, the impact of this is a major industry. If it takes off, it has value for the people. It fails, it has advantage for the people. So the communities, members, leadership should be part of the conversation. Labor should be part of the conversation. NLC, TVC, and other affiliates that are, especially the steel workers themselves. Again, National Assembly, the new government should be part of this conversation. At the end of the day, the critical issue is that the National Assembly can now take over and do public hearing. Usually in transactions, the agencies that are doing the sales often don't do a lot of conversation because the assumption is that before you start the transaction, there's been a policy clarity as to what should be done. There's been a legislation authorizing those actions. So they conduct small stakeholder consultation, not a bigger time. But now that this matter has gone to the National Assembly, maybe the next National Assembly or this have to do a much more extended consultation with labor, with the business community, with those investors, with the new government officials, and with the community stakeholders themselves, because they both for good for bad, the communities will be impacted by any decision taken with respect of this concession.
When things like this happen, local players sometimes in the industry that have been trying to grow are always affected. What do you think will be their position at the moment, or how well should they also be carried along?
Well, steel development has big impact on the economy if you get it unrolling. So there will be a lot of expectation that If we privatize or concession it and we start producing steel, it will help, with industrial takeoff probably around the Kogi and Kwara and all the up to far reach of Lagos and South. So there will be small businesses will be expectant whether this could help. We see how much people spend going to China for fabrications, dealing with steel and other kinds of work. So the Ajaokuta has been a measure designed to be a spur to industrialization. It has failed over the years. So the small businesses and other businesses around the area will be watchful. I mean, how much jobs can be created when the new owners take over? If we do concession it, do we have to see increase in commercial activity around the Kogi area, or do we have to see asset stripping? Are we going to see conflict in the communities who are protesting one aspect or another? So this has real implication, and I think the businesses and stakeholders will be watching. I think if it's done well and Ajaokuta is back and producing, then it will spike off a lot of industrial and commercial activity, both in the area and across further down to Lagos, to Abuja, and to the far east and the far north.
Exactly what I wanted to follow up with, like what's the implication of it really coming back on stream. But the ICRC also has a role to play in all of this. I guess, what really is their specific role in concessioning and all of this?
They're the regulator. I mean, first, they supervise, ensure that you follow due process, you follow the regulations, it's done for value, there's competition. The documentations are very clear in terms of showing what you are bidding for. So from day one, the ICRC is going to be part of, first, ensuring that the asset to be concession is one that ought to be concession by law. Ensure that the various stages, preparatory stages, bidding, advert publicity, which should have 6 weeks minimum by rule. So they have to supervise that process up to the point in which the bid is announced, the winner is announced, and even when the winner is announced, ensure post-sale or post-concession that they monitor the performance of the concessionaire with respect to the concession agreement. So they are going to play a major role. They are the regulator of the process.
Indeed, I agree with you, because governments also most times have a role to play in all of these agreements too. It's not always the private guys all the time. For example, the power sector, we know what the investors too had to do on their part to be able to at least catch up with the challenges on ground. But in all of this, you maintain that the best man or the best firm should be allowed to carry the day and not just anybody coming from anywhere, right, Ms. Dr. Amadi?
Sure. And again, the terms for the concession should be such that does not give a windfall to private entities at the detriment of public good. It should be structured to enable profitable business as well as produce beneficial public, social, and economic good.
Our level of public-private partnership in this country, despite our infrastructure deficit, is it at par, or are we supposed to do more? And if we are to do more, how can we encourage more investment, considering issues like this where we sometimes smell a rat?
Well, I think that was what the ICRC Act was supposed to do, to create some kind of certainty and process. So the first thing is, look, investors like certainty. They want to see bankability, not just from a commercial perspective, even social bankability, that issues, community, stakeholders are clarified and maintained. So you don't want to be an investor to come and buy an asset, and the next morning, look at a window, you see youths with cutlasses, with sticks, protesting. That's not what you want. So first, rule of law, the idea that this country guarantees recovery of cost, that the system allows people to make decent profit from their interventions, and at the same time, they have obligation to produce value, shared value. The second thing we look at is the process for managing the transaction. And this is where ICPC Act and other laws have come in to create certainty that, look, you must have to have a competitive bidding. You must have to have level playing field for everybody. And so you're not going to use the market processes to discriminate or to choose winners and losers by yourself. So these are the things that give confidence to our infrastructure market. And then we will close more PPP projects. The PPP market has not been very strong. I look at our landscape, we're not able to drive a lot of private-public partnership in infrastructure. We need to do more because globally, the public finance cannot procure for us the quality and the amount of infrastructure we need for our development challenges. But therefore, we have to continually rely on the private sector. And the PPP framework is built around certainty, trust, the quality of rule of law in this society, and the depth of our market. You know, if you see regulators that know their job and are not really, over-regulating or even under-regulating, because business will like fair regulation, but not under-regulation. If you don't regulate, it also imposes cost on business. It means that the business have to, deal with social costs through contracting. That's not a fair way. So good business would like to see fair regulation so that the social costs and risk are managed at the scale where the business plugs and play. So oftentimes people make the mistake that businesses don't like regulation. No, they want fair, not intrusive. They want non-discriminatory. They want objective, neutral regulation. Regulations that are fair, that allow for recovery of costs, which is very important, that gives certainty as to each actor, each stakeholder, what they deliver and what they will take. That's what will help us wrap up more PPP projects and deliver public goods through private financing and mechanisms.
Well, whatever is happening, at least we need to see these mills roll again. Let's see iron being produced in this country. Let's see more power supply. Let's see more infrastructure being developed at the moment. Let's just wrap up. What is your parting shot with regards to this issue and your advice again to government? Let's wrap up on that note.
First, I think that the executive branch should not continue the action. It should defer to incoming government. I think the National Assembly should issue some kind of prohibition, and then also a proposal that whoever takes over, there should be robust consultation with all stakeholders, including communities in Kogi State who were affected by some of the impact of the industry, and who will also benefit from the progress and economic value, take value from the efficiency that may result from a properly done concession. Bottom line is public value, and not just say we are concessioning. What is the quality of the firms who are coming in at concessionaires, and what are the terms of the concession agreement? That's really what we should focus on at this point. No need for rush. There's time. And let's allow the new government to come in and take it from there.
Honestly, I must thank you, Dr. Sam Amadi, Director, Abuja School of Social and Political Thoughts, a former chairman of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. Thank you so much for your contributions to this very important topic of discourse. Do enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.